Good morning, everybody.
Comfy.
They're very comfy, and I'm thrilled to be here with both of you. As Goldie mentioned, I have two very distinguished panelists this morning. VIcki Hildebrand, who's the CIO, Secretary of IT, so overseeing all matters of IT for the Department of Transportation. And I know that this is a big challenge with all of the modes of transportation and technology affecting absolutely everything that goes on across the DOT. Also, we have John, who is who oversees nearly 28,000 employees and operations at 328 ports of entry. In this role, you've been a leader developing many of the agency's successful business transformation efforts, including the deployment of the internationally acclaimed Global Entry Program, which makes you an absolute celebrity amongst all
and
of
my
our
hero.
business.
Thank you. It's going to get better, don't worry.
Also been recognized as a finalist for the prestigious Service to America's Medal. The Global Entry Trusted Traveler Program and the Automated Passport Control Program, also named as a Federal 100 winner for your vision in the Biometric Exit Program. So tremendous amount of accomplishments in your career. Honored to be here with you. So today we're going to ask you a couple of questions which I think the audience will find very interesting. Recent study by Dell EMC, we found that 44% of workers feel their workspace isn't smart enough. Also, 8 in 10 millennials say the decision to take or decline a new position would be influenced by the available technology in their job. I'd like to hear from each of you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the technology attraction of your agency to millennials in terms of the availability of current technology tools, with 10 being most attractive? And what progress has your agency made in modernizing its technology offering to better equip your workforce? VIcki, would you mind going first?
Happy to go first. But first I have to say thank you so much. As someone who traveled outside the U.S. for many years, that global entry was amazing. Made my life much better. In terms of the millennials, so I have 2 of my own and a new daughter-in-law who is a developer for Google. And the technology that we have in the government, it's not the first thing that millennials or early careers think about when they think of the government. We actually have a fair amount of tools, I think, in our workplace. I think we don't have the image of some of the high-tech firms that are out there. We still wear our suits, and we still have a very formal structure and engagement, and so it's more of a cultural thing than I think it is a technology tools thing. But I had an intern working with us this summer who spent a good part of his summer working on a Wi-Fi pineapple, which is, something that's new and in the cyber world we have to understand better. So we do. I think it's about the projects they're working on and the tools we use in our projects that excites early careers and millennials. So I didn't give you a number. I'm in the government, so I don't always answer the question directly. But I think, once we get them in the door and we show them the projects we're working on, I think that's where they can get excited.
Well, that's, I think, very interesting insight. And so, Mr. Wagner, what is your perspective on this with millennials and the workforce at Customs and Border Protection?
Sure, so I'll give you 2 numbers. I think we hit 10 sometimes, but we also are stuck on 1 a lot of times too. And we've got some great tools we've developed over the years on data analytics. We've got what we call non-intrusive inspection technology, which can X-ray an entire tractor trailer at once or an entire sea container of cargo. We've got cutting-edge biometrics with facial recognition platforms out there. But then you look at like our time and attendance system, and it's an old mainframe written in COBOL, right? You look at our hiring process, and you look at what applicants go through, their first impression of the agency, right? Through the hiring process is just woefully outdated, bureaucratic, and, stuck in just these old ways of communications, right? And then you look at our communication system, it's principally through email, right? So we really run the gamut of stuff, trying to push it all, up and get it better and modernized. But, with these huge efforts in these big systems, it's just challenging.
Well, thank you very much for that insight. Technology is a primary enabler for workforce transformation and productivity with your people that are actually out in the field, working every day with our citizens, and supporting the mission of your respective agencies. Could you share some examples of how you've helped bring technology to bear in support of workforce transformation, productivity, et cetera? John, would you mind going first?
Sure. I mean,
I'm recognizing that you're wearing a handgun. I just noticed that. I got to say, it's my first time actually moderating a panel with a panelist wearing a handgun, so I just wanted to call that out.
You're safe, don't worry.
Yes, hey, pretty cool.
We do a lot of advanced processing of information on cargo and our people, and it really helps us identify areas of concern to better steer our workforce about what to check and how much to check of that. We got 1 million people a day coming into the United States. We just can't stop and do 100% on every single person coming in, right? The lines are long enough as they are without, doing it. So we really take this risk management approach to what's our, most productive area to search or people to stop or things to look for. And then, what are the tools and the technology we do that with? And, we talk about global entry, right? For every person that uses global entry, it means a CBP officer doesn't have to interact with that person. So if I got 40,000 people a day using it on average, and each inspection normally takes 1 to 3 minutes with an officer, right? That's 40,000 plus minutes we don't have to spend with people. We can reinvest in everyone else. So it really takes us just a more efficient approach to where we drive our workforce. But then, as we're rolling out a lot of this facial recognition technology to make the officers in the booths even more productive and efficient, we do a lot of data entry, and we still do a lot of correction of data and typing, in that booth. And we've got to find better ways to streamline that process and make it easier for our workforce so they're not, stuck in these rote administrative, repetitive tasks, and they're more focused on the interaction with the people and the stakeholders and the cargo that they're inspecting.
So digital transformation of the workflow that actually creates the efficiency that allows your agents to focus more on the real problem.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm taking away. Thank you very much. VIcki, any comments for DOT?
One of the things that we're doing, which is super exciting, is using drones to do inspections. So if you think of the transportation landscape, which includes pipelines in Alaska, in remote places, we need to stay on top of the infrastructure. And one wonderful way to use technology to do that is to launch a drone to send back to us what things look like. What do we need to focus on? So that's just one example of a project that's underway. I went out on an inspection early in my tenure here, and the inspector pulled out a piece of paper and pencil and wrote down something he saw, and he said at the end of the day he would be going back and typing it into his report. Well, we're changing all of that with technology.
Well, you're both have missions that are very focused on keeping the citizens of this country safe, and it's very rewarding to hear how you're bringing technology to bear to create optimization as you execute on those missions. John, as the man behind the Global Entry Trusted Traveler Program, you've probably had more impact on transforming the international air travel arrival process than any other person. How did that impact CBP's workforce? What lessons did you take away from the Digital Transformation Initiative that shape your views today about workforce transformation?
It's interesting because as we roll out this technology, and we're about to embark on this whole facial recognition platform, it's going to make global entry even faster. You won't stop at a kiosk any longer and read your passport and your fingerprints and answer all the questions. You'll walk up to a camera, take a picture, and go. it's going to be that quick. We've got to build this. It'll take us about a year, but the facial recognition is really going to transform how we interact with international travelers. Now, we just can't launch that overnight, right? Especially with the impact on our workforce. What we saw with global entry, we operate in a very structured, conservative, scripted environment, right? And to tell officers, you're no longer going to talk to this person because we've already pre-cleared them in a sense, right? These are low-risk, trusted travelers. And to communicate that to the workforce that they're not going to be replaced by kiosks, they're not going to be replaced by machines. This is defining your new role in this, and this is how you're going to interact. But what we're saying is, these global entry members aren't completely without risk. We're just saying you got better odds of finding somebody in that line over there than that line. Now, as we roll out the facial recognition, again, we're going to automate a lot of the tasks an officer does today about handling the passport, looking it up in the computer. A lot of that will really be automated and done seamlessly for the officer. And we've got to communicate those changes to them that, again, they're not being replaced. Your role as that human being is looking at a traveler, asking those intuitive questions to determine the purpose and their intent of travel. And, do they have any items that require duties to be paid? Are there presenting any national security risks? Are they smuggling narcotics? The systems and the technology can help key up some risk factors, but at the end of the day, it's the officer that makes that critical decision. So as we roll out the technology, we've got to very carefully, communicate with our workforce about here's the changes, here's the technology behind it, here's why it's credible and you can believe it and rely on it, but let's refine what your role in this is and how you're not being replaced, because that's the first thing people, jump to. Oh, this machine's going to take my place and I'm going to get shipped out to the southwest border to work, right? So it's really getting in front of that and communicating that out in advance.
That's really inspirational viewpoint, because I know that a lot of government workers and people all over our both commercial sector and public sector worry about artificial intelligence replacing the value that they create. Right.
I mean, a quick funny story. When I joined Customs in 1991, we were just starting to roll out X-ray machines. We could X-ray luggage and packages, right? So I'm brand new, I'm on the job, I'm 22 years old, and there's an old timer there running the X-ray machine, and he goes, "Kid, you should have been in this job 20 years ago. It was much better. You see these machines? It's gonna kill all our overtime." I made more overtime every year I was out there in the field than I ever did. But it's that paranoia, right? And that culture change.
That's a great story. VIcki, as one of the CIOs recognized by FedScoop's 2018 Top Women in Technology, you commented that the environment at DOT is perfect for a digital transformation, in part because of the innovations across the transportation landscape, such as autonomous vehicles, drones, and IoT. Would you please talk about that briefly and how you're trying to translate those innovations into the workforce transformation?
I am so excited about where transportation is going. So I grew up watching the Jetsons, and one of these days I wouldn't be at all surprised if I see the Jetsons flying by my 6th floor office at the DOT. I mean, the world of transportation is moving so quickly. Think about what some of the private sector is doing around, SpaceX and the Loop and all the things that are coming with autonomous vehicles. So there's an awful lot of technology there that we can take advantage of. And I already mentioned the drones and how we can use those for inspections. Certainly cybersecurity is a huge focus when you have anything autonomous. And we're taking some of the learnings from our cybersecurity focus and incorporating those in some of the things that we're doing in the department. But the world of transportation is going through this massive transformation of its own. And we're learning a lot. Partnering with the private sector, we're learning a lot.
Well, it's an amazing and fast-moving part of our economy, and as this panel evolves and the conversation, the panel evolves, it's clear to me that no matter how you choose to deliver the people to the border, that John's going to figure out how to process them and get them in here safely. So that very synergistic conversation. As each of you look out over the next year or so, What's one or two of the top initiatives that your department or agency is taking to support workforce transformation?
So I like to talk about having an agile culture. So it's not just about agile development of new applications, but we have to think agile for everything. Establish a priority list, go after it. It incorporates speed, it incorporates the whole concept of introducing new things quickly. One of the values we have back at the Department of Transportation IT is the time is now. We want to move quickly. The government has a tendency to like to really talk through things, and then they vet them, and then they vet them again, and then they vet them again, and they write them up in documents, and your document looks like a brick. And what we're trying to say is get some smart people together and make some decisions and implement them. So I started a transformation program back about 4 months ago, and we have already racked up a number of quick wins. So that's one initiative. Certainly cyber is another that we really have to focus on over the next couple of years. And data. In our world, we live with a lot of data. Safety is the number one mission of the department, and we have an awful lot of data that we need to better use, to ensure the safety of the American people. So those are the three things.
So new data coming in, as well as a tremendous amount of data accumulated over years that you're trying to take advantage of.
Yeah. We really believe in data, using data as it comes in. So bring it in and propagate it to the places it needs to go and use it immediately. Because we all know that if you bring data in and you store it, and then you batch transfer it somewhere else, and then you batch transfer it from there to it's old. It's old, it's incorrect, it's not as useful as it needs to be. So we're trying to figure out a landscape that allows us to use data the minute it comes in with safety in mind.
So it sounds to me like you're really harnessing technology to put some velocity and speed into the rate and pace at which your agency is working to create value for the citizen.
Speed is number one. We know what to do. We have to get it done quickly.
Super, thank you. John, how do you see technology playing a central role in workforce transformation?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on trying to build this innovative, fast-paced, agile environment. And as we roll out things like I mentioned, the facial recognition platforms, and how we took a congressional requirement to take biometrics from departing visitors from the United States and not take the typical government approach of going out and buying 5,000 things, nailing them to the floor, and make people line up and behind it and go through it, and creating another gauntlet of checks at the airport, another gauntlet of requirements of what you got to do and go through before you get on board the plane. And taking it, leveraging the facial recognition, but working with the key stakeholders, the airlines and the airports, to also combine the transformation of their own efforts with what the government's trying to do and build one single process for people. What we've got is people can now board a plane onto an international destination, this is what we're piloting, without presenting their boarding pass or their passport. And as simple as walk up, have their picture taken, and boarding the plane. And we're seeing the airlines are reducing boarding times in some cases by half, right? And we're fulfilling that government security mandate of collecting the biometric from the foreign visitors at the same time. And it's all seamless, and it's all efficient, and it's all secure. Now, doing that means you partner with the private sector, and they are contributing part of that, say, technology ecosystem to the government's platform. We'll operate the backbone, but all those front-end devices that we'll plug in aren't going to be owned by the government. And this makes a lot of people in the bigger bureaucracy nervous, because it's not the typical way we would go about an acquisition or building an IT platform where the government doesn't own the entire piece. And you're injecting data and equipment into that you don't own or control or have any, you have some influence over it. You can set the requirements, but you don't control it. And that makes a lot of people nervous. And it's hard for them to understand and how you fit this into your standardized acquisition processes to go about developing these systems. And Whereas some people see a risk in relying on someone else's technology so you can do your job, I see it as reducing the risk because they've got a business need tied into it as well. If the airline's got to board the plane, that camera's got to work. If that camera's got to work, it means we get our data that we need, right? So it's really thinking through those types of approaches. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, communicating this to the workforce about how it transforms their job, makes it easier, makes it more secure for them, makes them more productive, and gives them more meaningfulness into the work that they do, right? And challenging them to really, help drive this innovation and take part in this, rather than being that guy I mentioned at the X-ray van saying, this technology is going to kill all my overtime, right? And taking that, the change is scary for some of us.
I'd like to emphasize that point because what we're really trying to do is use automation and technology to take the rote manual activities out of the work we do. And allow people to use their brains we're not really replacing jobs, we're upskilling jobs is the way I like to think about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
So you're leveraging and harnessing both artificial intelligence like facial recognition and automation to really unleash the human potential of your workforce. I think that's very admirable and very very much in line with our view of the possibilities that can be unlocked by harnessing technology and the value of technology. So we're pretty close to the end of our panel here. Are there any other comments or parting shots for the audience before we head backstage?
Just, as we launch the new technology, we've also got to figure out the back-end systems that operate them. And if we don't fully challenge ourselves to develop that entire system, right, we're selling ourselves short. So we roll out the new technology, but we still have a CBP officer standing behind a wired desktop with a keyboard and a mouse, right? So, but yet we get this cutting-edge technology right in front of them with a camera that's doing facial recognition. So, I'm really challenging my staff to, hey, we're taking away the keyboard and the mouse. We're going to put them up with the 8-track tapes and the records and the cassette tapes, back in the Smithsonian.
Tape drives and
so
the big discs. I remember all
how
those.
do as an officer, can I clear you on my phone? Can I clear you on my smartwatch? And if I have a body-worn camera that takes your picture as you walk up to me, and on my watch I get all your information and I can clear you into the U.S. by a simple swipe, how do we get to build that and take advantage of those consumer devices and integrate them into the workforce? And, to come full circle with the millennial discussion, the younger workforce will be familiar and comfortable with these devices, right? And this is what they're going to want to see in their work environment. They're going to look at a mouse and go, what the heck is that, right? So.
Yeah. I'd like to build on something John said earlier, too. As IT evolves and modernizes, I think it's critical that the other functions in the government come along with us. So it doesn't make any sense to want to move quickly on a technology and have your acquisition team tell you it's going to take a year to get to it. So we really need to encourage some of the other functions in the government to think in terms of speed and moving quickly to enable what we're trying to do in the world of technology.
Well, thank you both very much for your service to our country and all the mission critical work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.